Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 50 Years of Creative Housing Solutions in Montgomery County, Maryland panel with Director Chelsea Andrews and Director Scott Bruton. My name is Francesca Mari, and I'm a contributing writer to the New York Times Magazine. My journalism there focuses on housing and equity. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our first two panelists for the Rise of Social Housing Conference, hosted by Hawaii State Senator Stanley Chang. Chelsea Andrews is the Executive Director of the Housing Opportunities Commission for Montgomery County. Director Andrews has led various large-scale operations, legal councils, and mission-based organizations, most recently serving as the Executive Director of Everyone Home, representing stakeholders in Alameda County and 14 other cities working to prevent and end homelessness for nearly 10,000 individuals. Director Andrews attended Florida A&M University, where she earned both a bachelor's and master's degree, and George Washington University, obtaining a degree in business administration and a Juris Doctorate. Scott Bruton is the director of the Department of Housing and Community Affairs for Montgomery County. Prior to his role as director, Dr. Bruton spent 7 years as senior vice president for housing policy, research, and development for the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development in Washington, D.C. In that role, he was able to secure increases of nearly $2 billion in local funding for affordable housing and homelessness prevention programs. Dr. Bruton has also led the Preservation Network, working with various government agencies, developers, lawyers, and tenants to preserve the affordability of publicly assisted housing. Director Bruton joins us with a wealth of knowledge in housing policy across America. Now, one quick logistical note before we get started. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat Q&A, and we'll try our best to answer as many as we can after the presentation. Thank you, and I'll hand it over to our presenters.
Thank you so much, moderator Francesca Mari. My co-panelist, Scott Bruton, I believe is running a few moments late, and so I will get started. I want to give great appreciation to Senator Stanley Chang for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you what we are doing in Montgomery County, Maryland. And so I will start with sharing my screen. Give me one moment. Okay. So today I plan on covering a couple of areas with you. First, providing you some history and some context in regards to Montgomery County, share with you some information related to our Housing Production Fund and the benefits of public ownership, as well as in today's discussion, sharing some challenges and opportunities in spaces and places in which additional support could further this particular opportunity across the U.S. And so I'll start with just sharing information related to Montgomery County. You may know that Montgomery County is a suburb of the Washington, D.C. area. This is a map that shows essentially the different areas in Montgomery County. We have over 500 square miles. We serve over 1.1 million residents. You will notice that the blue area is what's called the urban ring. That's right outside of the Washington, D.C. area. And it is where we have the highest density. It's our urban core, and where the multifamily rents are around $2.85 a square foot. And that's where there are the, of course, taller buildings and more density. As we move out in the green and yellow, as well as purple areas, these areas are where you will see more garden style apartments, mid-rise apartments. It's further from the core and further from the Washington, D.C. area. But throughout Montgomery County, we have the benefit of having a metro system. And therefore, even in some of the suburban areas, there are transit opportunities for people. And so that's an area of focus for us. And the brown area is our agricultural area, and it's greenfield, and it's largely tapped out for redevelopment. Go to the next slide. HOC is really unique considering how many other states and locales operate with their housing authorities. We're unique in the sense that we are a housing authority, a housing finance agency, and a public developer. And having all those tools at our fingertips have been really extraordinarily helpful in advancing our mission. As the public housing authority, we administer close to 8,700 housing rental vouchers across the county. And of course, this is supplemented by HUD, and we work with our Housing Choice Voucher Program department to administer these vouchers. We're currently at approximately 98% utilization, so we really do maximize this resource to the best of our ability. Also, as the Public Housing Authority, we pride ourselves in offering resident services to individuals that are both in our units and in our properties, our portfolio, as well as voucher holders. And we have recently extended those services to individuals on our waiting list. And I'll share a little bit more later in the presentation on what those types of resident services look like. We also provide permanent supportive housing, and so the full spectrum of resource for residents in this county we provide. So permanent supportive housing is the wraparound case management services that we provide to individuals who have experienced housing instability or homelessness and need a full breadth of resources and services. And we also have a nonprofit, Housing Opportunities Community Partners, that's affiliated with HOC and really does the fundraising to help support our programs across our portfolio for our children as well as our adults. As the Housing Finance Agency, we have the ability to issue a variety of government, private activity, 501c3, and taxable bonds. We're rated by Moody's as A2, and that really has been a wonderful resource to us as we have developed our portfolio. It is the financing tool that we've used, and as you can see on the slide, we've issued over $560 million of FHA risk share loans through 2023. We also utilize this tool to have a robust single-family home ownership program where we're able to provide resources to individuals by way of low-cost mortgages as well as homeowner down payment assistance. As a public developer, we own over 9,400 rental units that is really over 53 multifamily and senior properties across the county, as well as scattered sites, which are both townhomes and single family homes that are located all across the county. And as you see here, we have approximately 1,700 units that are dedicated to our seniors. Right now, we have over 13 projects underway with close to 3,300 units that we anticipate producing over the next 18 months. So very robust in our public development work. We are the largest affordable housing developer in the county. Because today we wanted to share some information related to the Housing Production Fund, wanted to start with giving some context in terms of how we evolved. As you will see, back in 1989, we were producing real estate with debt-only financing. And as time went on and as opportunities presented themselves in terms of the introduction of the LIHTC program, we began to leverage the LIHTC program in an innovative way. Back in 1996 with the Strathmore development, in 1997 with Metropolitan, we were able to create a new model where we would condo LIHTC as a portion of the development and allow the remaining portion of the development to be market rate. And this was a model that really began to infuse the mixed income model in our portfolio early on. We were an early adopter of this concept, and quite frankly, continue to use that model for many years, over 10 years. It wasn't until 2018 that we began to think about some other ways in which we could potentially structure our deals so that we could benefit from a mixed model, a mixed income model, without having to use LIHTC, which, as everyone knows, is limited in capacity across each state and location and locale. And so with the Lindley, we followed a similar model, but did not use LIHTC, and instead had private equity by way of a philanthropic partner, as well as HOC's own equity in the deal, and use what we refer to, and I'll explain later, as FFB and FHA risk share as the source for permanent funding. So this was a development that ultimately allowed us an opportunity to have mixed income without relying on any federal resource, and really was the catalyst for the HPF. I've been told by many of my colleagues prior to my arrival that in 2019, a group of delegates from the Vienna area came and met with our council members, and there was an opportunity to think through how could we potentially create a model similar to what Vienna has been successful in, and the Lindley was looked at as the potential way to do that. And so, of course, our county council asked how could they support us in that endeavor, and we had an answer. It was give us some money, give us $100 million, and we can show you what we can do with it. And so I'll share with you how we leveraged that position in the creation of the HPF. And so the HPF, the Housing Production Fund, was created out of the discussion that I just shared with you, and thinking creatively about how to leverage the county's AAA bond rating, as well as how to replace private equity with cross-subsidized affordability. And so in this instance, the county council started in spring of 2021 with approving $50 million for HOC to use for construction loans. And the construction loan, of course, as you know, is a typically extremely expensive component of development. So knowing that we'd have a low interest loan for construction was really imperative in terms of being able to produce more faster. And so they agreed to provide us with that $50 million. We got to work very quickly, and it wasn't until only a year later where the council had enough confidence in what we were doing that they appropriated an additional $50 million. And so what this looks like is the county pledging to pay debt service for 20 years, and that's our principal and interest for the bonds, and HOC issues the bonds and controls the fund. And HOC's board ultimately reviews projects and determines which projects we will move forward with the HPF. And so it is a revolving fund, which is really a unique model and construct, because it allows us to use the resource for our construction and pay back the loan over a period of time. We pay 5% interest, or each project pays 5% interest to the county to offset the debt service. And after 5 years, once the project is stabilized or sooner, the project is refinanced and the principal is paid to the HPF, which allows us to use that resource again for another project. And so when we initially looked at how this revolving fund could benefit us, and after the 20-year term for the bonds, it is a resource that will continue. You will see here that over 6,000 new units over the next 20 years, 1,800 affordable, can be produced with this fund alone. The way that our board has approached the affordability component of the HPF has been to require us to include at least 30% affordable, and you will see that the percentages in terms of how much 50% of area income, median income for 20% of the affordability, as well as 70% AMI for 10% of the affordability is the threshold. But I will share that our board is always seeking to go deeper in affordability. And with this model, the requirement and the county council's requirement is that HOC must have a controlling ownership stake. So this is the public developer, public ownership model that we have developed here. I spoke earlier about how quickly we were able to move with this resource becoming available to us. In March of 2021 is when the resolution passed. And as you can see, the fund was established not long afterwards. And in less than 6 months after the fund was established, we provided the first loan to the project that you see on your screen, the Laureate. And it is truly a beautiful example of how we've been able to leverage this resource in a wonderful proof of concept. It's highly amenitized, it's in walking distance to a metro, and it has the mixed income and affordability that we're extremely proud to offer the community. And so we opened this development here not too long ago in June of 2023, and today it says over 90% leased. I will share that this morning I got an email saying the property and the project is now stabilized. So extremely proud of this first investment, and of course continuing to move forward with additional pipeline projects that we have already identified. More information about our pipeline as well as this particular program, our HPF, is also on our website. Again, the goal here is really to allow HOC to develop more faster. And so on this slide is just really snapshots of various projects that are in our pipeline that will be utilizing this resource. Hillendale Gateway, which is on the top left, is a project that we're proud of for many reasons, one of which because of the fact that it is going to be Maryland's first net zero energy passive home residential building, both senior and mixed family, as well as offer many amenities to the community, as well as retail space. And so that is a new development that's currently underway. We have been able to reach parts of the county that we weren't in previously. Clarksburg, which is really further out in the suburban area. Wheaton Gateway, which will be close to 1,000 units, is also going to benefit from this resource. And Elizabeth House in the next few years will also be a project that will benefit from the HPF. This slide is here to really just demonstrate the fact that while this model, the HPF model, has 30% affordability, and one might argue does not allow for the same amount of affordable units as LIHTC, actually, when thinking about the fact that one, it does not touch or take from our local community in terms of access to LIHTC or other federal resources, it actually produces the same amount, if not more, of affordable units. And so again, it's not an either or proposition. We really do need all of these resources available. And what we were thinking about is how can we accelerate and have yet another resource that will allow us to leverage the ability to build more faster. And that's what this slide demonstrates. And just getting into the benefits of public ownership for us, you know, building the affordable housing units or even issuing vouchers is really one part of the bigger picture. The big picture really is to really improve the lives of those that we touch and our residents. And so when we have a long-term stake in the development, meaning it will forever be affordable, that means we also have the opportunity and ability to touch those lives and to provide resources to help them reach their fullest potential. And so once a property is in public ownership, it provides stability for residents. We own the building, so income restrictions never expire. We subscribe to the county's rental guidelines that allow us to ensure that we're not really trying to maximize rent, instead just stabilize the property and ensure that we're taking care of our families. It also is creates an opportunity for us to provide those resident services and again, provide support for those that are in our units. We also use this in our developments in a creative way where we can layer other resources. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program and or any other rent supplement program can layer into each of these developments, allowing us to get a deeper level of affordability and ultimately support the public goals. Where, again, you heard about Hillendale and the environmental components that we've included there. We have developments where we're co-locating public facilities. Right now, we're building an aquatic and recreational center in one of our larger downtown areas, as well as be thoughtful partners in each community that we develop in terms of what's needed with retail, public space, open spaces, childcare, etc. And so really wanting to ensure that we maintain long-term ownership, because it also, as we know, increases equity over time and allows us to leverage that equity for even more development in the future. So there are multiple benefits, and these are just a few of the public ownership model. We, of course, also like to highlight that in addition to the work that we do as it pertains to the development component and creating the additional units and providing the resources for our residents, we also have a positive economic impact on our county. And so within the last 15 years, because of the development that we've undertaken, we have created, as you can see, over $1.8 billion $3.1 billion of total economic input. And that is a 1.7 economic impact multiplier. And so ultimately really having a strong impact on the economy, raising resources for our county, but also having the ability to create job production in areas that may need additional resources for those residents and for the individuals across our county. And so we are proud of the fact that we've created over 19,000 jobs through the work that we've done with our developments. So some of the challenges and opportunities with our fund, and quite frankly, for many of us, in addition to what we already know, just there being limited resources and much more demand, includes the fact that the way that HOC has been able to really structure our transactions has been to leverage the HPF for the construction component of our deals. However, taking out the construction loan and transitioning to a permanent loan with using our FHA has been the way that we have been able to ensure low interest rate and long-term affordability. Because of our status as the HFA, we've also been able to use what's called the FFB, Federal Financing Bank guarantee with our HFA to get even lower interest rates. And so this is a program, as you can see in the slide before you, that really is one where President Obama's administration had allowed the Federal Financing Bank to purchase risk share loans, essentially as a stopgap. And the Trump administration closed it, but the Biden administration opened it again. And it's a component of the Treasury Department, and it allows us to have a lower interest rate than the interest rate that we can obtain with our HFA status. However, the program is currently set to sunset in 2027 and will stop accepting applications here in 2024. So a part of our legislative priorities and quite frankly, advocacy has been to encourage HUD to consider extending the time for this program. It allows us to guarantee low cost funding for permanent loans for our developments. And of course, with the program expiring, it will result in higher ultimate costs for us. And so we're sharing the word with all of our colleagues and friends in terms of ways to potentially advocate for the extension of this program. And so I am going to pause for questions, but also do a pulse check with the host to see if my colleague Scott Bruton has arrived.
It appears that he has.
Wonderful. All right, Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thanks. Sorry about that.
And I apologize for saying Bruton. Scott Bruton. Great to see you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I was a few minutes late, folks, and it was my fault, my misunderstanding about the time change. And then when I joined, it was under my assistant's name, and it took a little bit of time. So I've been here for almost the whole thing, listening to Director Andrews' wonderful presentation. I think, Ariel Blacklow, do you have I sent an abbreviated slide deck to try to be conscientious about time. No? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And if you have that slide deck, you might choose to share screen and operate that way.
Sure. Okay.
Beautiful, we see it.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry. Not used to, sorry, you're seeing the whole screen, but I'll do my best to move through that. Can you all see with adequate size?
Yes, and if you want, you can choose presentation view, perhaps.
Sorry, I don't usually do for myself. Where's presentation view?
Let's see. And I'm not familiar with PCs. But this works. I think we just
at the bottom near bottom right, there's a little square. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Hit that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
You're welcome.
So I'll just skip ahead and I'll just go straight to the meat of things and try to fill you in on the different tools that Montgomery County has developed over the past almost 50 years now for producing and preserving affordable housing in the county. We do have the first I'll go into are the different loan funds that we have for both the production and preservation of affordable housing. We have the longest standing loan fund that we have in the county is called our Housing Initiative Fund, and it is both for the production and preservation of affordable housing. It's our most flexible tool for assisting in both production and preservation. We can do loans for short-term acquisition, medium hold, or for the long term. We can adjust interest rates to help projects to succeed, to reduce the gap financing burden on them, the lowest being just 1% for the initiation fee for the loans. We also have a few new funds that we've created over the past few years. The first being the Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing Fund, which we created a few years ago to pair with our right of first refusal process to help preserve existing naturally occurring affordable housing properties or already preserved properties that are already preserved through federal, state, and local funds. And I'll go more into that in a minute. A couple of years ago, we also created the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund. This was a dedicated pool of $20 million in revolving county funds for short-term acquisition loans of 2 to 3 years to acquire and preserve affordable properties that were at risk of losing their affordability and to protect tenants from displacement. And just last year, we created a new fund, which we are working on with the Housing Opportunities Commission to create a midterm loan fund, so 7 to 10 years, that would be limited to existing properties, generally existing affordable housing properties, and also limited to nonprofit developers. And we're still working on the terms and conditions of this fund, but both the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund and the Nonprofit Preservation Fund, the former, which we administer in conjunction with the National Housing Trust, and the latter, which we would have a similar relationship with the Housing Opportunities Commission. The goal is to bring in impact investors to combine with the low-cost county funds in order to bring down the costs of the financing for the projects. I'll move on. We also have a range of tax abatements, mostly payment in lieu of taxes or pilots, that we use both for the production or preservation of affordable housing. For the production, we have discretionary pilots, and those can be for a range of percentages of the property taxes, and those are negotiated on a project-by-project basis in exchange for guaranteed affordability for a particular period of time. Our relatively new By Right pilot program is limited to nonprofit developers that are maintaining a certain percentage of the units at certain levels of affordability, and that's for 100% tax abatement. And then we also have WMATA, which is our Washington Metro Area Transit Authority, and there are pilots for affordable housing that is built on Washington Metro Area Transit Authority land. The discretionary and by right pilots are also available to be used on preservation properties that comply with those restrictions. We also have rental agreements, which are able to be used for both production and preservation, and those can be in two flavors: either a loan for a long-term rental agreement, for usually a 5 to now we're starting to do 15-year rental agreements. And those rental agreements are where the county, pays the difference either through a long-term loan or through monthly payments. And the difference between the market rate on that unit and a rate that would be affordable to a negotiated household area median income level. And so we negotiate rental agreements for units set at 70%, 60, 50, 40, and we've even done some at 30. And so that's a very flexible way to, in effect, create project-based subsidy units, sort of through a different name. We also, as I mentioned before, have the county's right of first refusal program that's been around for a little over 40 years. This program allows the county, the Housing Opportunity Commission, or tenant association to preserve the affordability of existing rental housing by matching the terms and conditions and the price of a property that's up for sale that's already had that already has a contract purchaser. And this has been especially helpful. The county over the past several years has averaged 2 to 3 exercises of the right of first refusal program. They have mostly been for larger properties in order to preserve affordable housing. And we use some of the tools that I've already gone over, the different loan funds or pilots to help with gap financing to preserve these properties. And I will note that our naturally occurring affordable housing fund, we are hoping we're going to be able to absorb that into the other funds because we're making some amendments to our right of first refusal program that would change the restrictions on how we go about working with partners to exercise that. And so hopefully we'll be able to streamline things a little. I'll also note that we recently passed a rent stabilization law under the preservation category. And so that law, aside from certain exceptions, will limit rent increases to the consumer price index plus 3%. And happy to talk more if anyone would like about how that will help with preservation. And last but not least, I'll go into our moderately priced dwelling unit program. Montgomery County has one of the oldest inclusionary zoning programs in the country. We're in our 49th year going into 50. It is for both rental and for sale properties. The affordability for the rental and for sale is pegged at either 65 or 70% of the area median income per households. And depending on which part of the county, the number of units that need to be provided by a project by the developer is either 12 or 15% in exchange for a density bonus. 15% are in higher density areas of the county that have greater access to transit. And so that's the rationale for those. We also have a smaller workforce housing program, which is for households between 70 and 120% of AMI. That's both rental and for sale. And then I'll also note that we have been focusing on the use of county-owned land for the production of affordable rental and ownership housing. The county put together, our Department of General Services put together an inventory of vacant or underutilized county land that we are looking to partner with affordable housing developers in order to create housing or mixed-use developments to increase additional affordable housing. And so trying to be conscientious about time, I'm happy to go into more details about all of these tools and how they work together in a Q&A period.
Thank you both so much. It's really inspiring what you've been able to accomplish in Montgomery County. So we have about 9 minutes for questions, and there's one question in the Q&A, and I've got a whole batch of them. And so I'm going to be greedy and take the opportunity to ask a couple of them first. So a question I have is, where do you think the Housing Opportunities Commission is replicable and where is it not replicable? And where is a housing production fund replicable and where is it not replicable? Like, should every county be doing this? Can every county, or?
Great question. And of course, we've been asked this as we're working with many jurisdictions across the US and trying to information share. Of course, the structure for each housing authority and the legislating organic statutes that create these different entities are the fundamental source in which you can determine what the powers are for each organization. So there are certain cities and spaces and places that are currently considering creating new entities that can be the public developer. There are spaces and places where the HFA and the housing authority are working in concert, and the housing authority has the ability to move forward. It really is not a situation where this partnership or leveraging county resource as well as the issuance of bonds and developing with a model like HPF cannot be replicated anywhere. I think that there are no limitations. It truly is a matter of what structure works best based on the constructs in that particular area. And sometimes there are politics and other things that, of course, come into play. So it really is a matter of thinking about what and how the best structure would be and who has the capacity. We often give the advice of thinking about which entity has the capacity to underwrite or to has development experience, who has the ability to leverage their bond ratings, and thinking about all of those things in terms of who and where in each location to create a model like this.
Could you see there ever being a federal HPF, a federal revolving fund for affordable housing production or government-owned housing production?
That would be awesome. Of course, I will share that the HPF right now is local in terms of being in our county. However, we have just last year, there was legislation introduced for the state to consider a matching fund for the HPF. And of course, if on a federal level, there could be some consideration similar to this, that would also be really a good resource. There also is some legislation that was recently introduced by a congressperson in regards to the potential of creating, or at least allowing, the federal government and HUD to create a kind of a program that will provide technical assistance to different states and counties in terms of how to stand up this type of model. But to put the financial backing behind it and to create that for jurisdictions across the U.S. would be a great benefit.
Great, thank you. And to take an audience question that I think got answered a bit after it was posted, but I'll throw it out just to ensure that there's clarity. Barbara Polk writes, affordable has different meanings in different settings. What is your definition of affordable? And then how big are the apartments? Mm-hmm.
I think the question might have come in during my presentation. And so, yes, of course, looking at the various ranges of area median income, it really does come into play when you're thinking about development and what you can what will financially pencil out. In our housing production fund, there are some thresholds that I shared in the slides. So I think the question came before that. However, we have 30% affordable. It is a combination of 50% AMI, which in our area for a one bedroom, and I anticipated a question like this, is approximately $54,000, all the way to a 70% AMI for 10% of the unit, which 10% of the units, which would be approximately require 60,000 in terms of income, annual income for a one person in the county. And so, of course, as you go deeper, some of the ways that we try to touch the 0 to 30% AMI, which is the deepest level of need, quite frankly, is through the voucher program, the federal voucher program, that allows us to subsidize, and that voucher program can be used in the developments that we're building with HPF. So that allows for that even deeper level of affordability. Scott may have some other thoughts in regards to this answer, but affordable is a term that's used so broadly, and thinking about extremely low income versus the moderate income levels is something that we take into consideration here as well.
Yeah, I would add to that, we tend to focus on all the band of low income, 0 to 30, 31 to 50, 51 to 80 are all low income, and we try to provide affordable housing to that full range of incomes. We also focus on moderate income households for part of what we do for homeownership initiatives, down payment assistance programs, things like that. Most ownership programs are focused on households at 70%, 70 to or percent or above. I think as everybody knows, the deeper you go in setting up affordability restrictions, the more costly. And you generally find that if you're going to go to the extremely low income range, you need an ongoing subsidy, an ongoing operating subsidy. To get to 50%, that's usually LIHTC with some additional loans. But yeah.
Thank you. And with the last 1 minute, I'm going to stack a couple of the questions, and you can just give your briefest of responses. Somebody asked, what's Montgomery County's vision for the future, and have landowners or developers lobbied to create laws to prohibit any of the work and progress that Montgomery County is doing?
I would say the vision is to create more equitable. We have to create more affordable housing, but our vision is to create more equitable communities in federal parlance, to affirmatively further fair housing, but also to create more communities of opportunity. There's sort of an east-west divide in Montgomery County, and there's a preponderance of the affordable housing on the east side. And we need to do far more work on the east side of the county to create communities of opportunity. And on the west side, where there are more amenities and more access to transportation, schools, grocery stores, banking, things like that, we need to integrate much more affordable housing so that we have a more more equitable community across the county. And the county has significantly increased the amount of money through the Housing Preservation Fund for HOC and through some of the tools that I mentioned to help create and preserve additional affordable housing.
Great. Well, organizers of this event, let me know if we have time for anything else. But otherwise, I think that marks the end of this session. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and wisdom and proven successes with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for the opportunity and the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And again, my apologies for being late and having the wrong name for a little while.